They called us the Ash Race. The Trisari, high tongue word for human, roughly translated to that which burns, then vanishes. A poetic insult, one whispered in war councils and etched onto the halls of their warships like a prophecy already fulfilled. Weren't supposed to last the first cycle. We weren't supposed to still be here. The first strike came without warning. Orbitals lit up over 77 human worlds, cities gone before any last words could be spoken. The Trisari Empire moved with elegance, with technology 2 centuries ahead, and with all the arrogance of a predator who had never once been hurt. They underestimated one thing at our strength, not our weapons. Our refusal. Smoke still rose from the ruins of Kaldesh Prime when they found him. The man who didn't die, Major Elias Rourke, scarred, silent, sitting alone in the crater of what had once been the 2nd Defense Command. No radio, no food, just a rusted knife and a shattered sidearm, and the bodies of 8 Trisari soldiers around him. The Coalition recovery team approached with caution. The Volkirian handler, Serev, kept one eye on his sidearm, another on Rourke's hands. "You waited here?" Serev asked. "Why?" Rourke stood slowly. He didn't answer, just looked at the sky, then at the ruins, then at the knife. "They'll be back," he said. "And I'm not done." In the halls of the Trisari Warfleet, laughter echoed. The High Stratigarch dismissed the resistance as posture from a dying race. The prophet speakers declared humanity spiritually extinct. Their feeds broadcast prisoners sobbing, soldiers begging, planets surrendering before a single weapon was fired. To them, war was a ceremony, a harvest. They didn't understand war as we did. They never had to. Across shattered colonies, survivors formed knots. No orders, no fleet, no command structure. Just pain, just fire, just refusal. They began to move, quietly, brutally, not with armadas, with sabotage, not with open resistance, with traps, malware, misinformation, and one by one, Trisari outposts went dark. That's when the first fractal dreadnought was found gutted. 3,000 Trisari dead, no orbital scars, no ship signatures. Just one word carved into the deck plating. Still here. Rourke was no general. He didn't speak in strategy rooms or inspire with speeches. But when the Coalition command needed someone to take a suicide team behind enemy lines into a sovereign-class world ship, they didn't ask for volunteers, they just looked at Rourke. He nodded once. They dropped into the void in stolen Trisari assault pods. No backup, no exit strategy. Just a map scrawled from half-corrupted data and the weight of a dying species on their backs. Rourke led 6 others. 3 humans, 1 Volkirian, 1 Draxel, 1 Kellenite defector. A broken, mistrustful mix fused by desperation. Inside, the world ship pulsed like a cathedral of steel and light. Holy to the Trisari, untouchable, sacrosanct, until now. "You hear that?" whispered Kel, the youngest of the human crew. The Draxel, Kren, clicked his jaws. No patrols. Too quiet was right. They advanced. Down corridors humming with psionic energy. Through chambers where weapons larger than cities slept in silence. No guards. No defenses. Just silence. And something else. Something watching. They reached the core. Planted the charges. Rourke stared at the power matrix. A living crystal, pulsing like a heart, floating in gravity null. "Time to go," Kel said. Rourke didn't move. His eyes locked on the symbols engraved beneath the crystal. Not Trisari script, human English, faded, scratched in. One line. "We were here first." Kel stepped forward. "Major, we—" The lights shifted, a pulse. A tremor. Then came the voice. Smooth. Alien. Inside their minds. "So you've returned to die again." They turned and saw it. It didn't move. It didn't need to. Floating above the crystalline core, shrouded in psionic mist, the entity pulsed with memory. Not its own, but stolen, 7 feet tall. Angular, half organic, half machine. A sentinel left behind by something older than the Trisari. Its face was a smooth obsidian plate devoid of features. But it spoke, not through sound, but pressure. Each syllable landed like a hand pressing against your skull. You ran once. Do you remember? The team froze. Weapons up. Rourke stared. Not ours, he said. It's not Trisari tech. The Volkyrian, Serev, stepped forward. Then what is it? The entity twitched. Not like a living thing, but like a memory glitching in real time. Lights along its arms flickered. It tilted its head as if hearing a song only it understood. Then it answered. They found this world ship long after it was dead. They carved out its bones and forgot what bled inside. Rourke didn't blink. They don't remember the First War, he said. Do they? The sentinel's head turned to him slowly. But you do. The Trisari had always spoken of their empire as unbroken, eternal, ascendant. But what the sentinel revealed next cracked, that myth like a bone. Long before humans had fire, before Earth had cities, there was a war. The Trisari lost, not to machines, not to stars, to something very much like us, primitive, unyielding, disobedient to extinction. It had taken the Trisari 9,000 years to rebuild what they now ruled. But in the echo of that first war, they had sworn never to remember, and yet humanity had been remembered. The sentinel moved, not with speed, with purpose. One gesture. Rourke dove. The air cracked like lightning. Kel screamed. Serev fired. The bolt passed through the sentinel like smoke. Then the walls began to pulse. Red. Lockdown initiated bio-threats. Identified purge in 120 seconds. We set charges, Kren growled. Blow it and run. Can't, Rourke said. Not yet. He pointed at the Old English scratched beneath the matrix, letters now glowing faintly in response to the sentinel's presence. Kel read it aloud, barely a whisper. Second flame rises if the first goes out. What does that mean? Serev asked. Rourke moved toward the matrix. We've been here before, he said. Not just this place, this war. He pressed his palm against the crystal. It responded. Suddenly, the world ship screamed. Thousands of miles above, on the Trisari command bridge, alarms burst to life. The Stratigarch stared at the flashing sigils in disbelief. Impossible, he said. The core was reacting. Not collapsing, awakening. They triggered the dormant systems, a subordinate said. But how? They should not have had the keys. Back inside, the sentinel reared up, its smooth face shattering outward into spirals of data and light. It was becoming something else, drawing power from the awakening crystal. You do not belong here, it hissed. Rourke stared into its fracturing form. Neither do you. He triggered the uplink. A ripple surged through the room, and the entire team dropped to their knees. Memories not their own tore through them. Flashes, screams, battlefields that never existed. Skies torn open. Trisari war machines burning. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a seed, a buried record of humanity's first defiance, older than history, stored in alien code, waiting for something compatible to touch it. Human biology had just been the key. The sentinel faltered. Kel staggered upright, blood from her nose. You're killing it. No, Rourke said. I'm showing it what we are. The sentinel shrieked and lunged. Time slowed. Serev tackled Rourke aside, took the hit full to the chest. His body convulsed, then turned to glass, shattered, gone. Rourke caught himself, breath gone, knife drawn. No time for grief. Not now. Trigger the failsafe, he shouted. We'll be trapped, Kren roared. Better us than this getting out. The Draxel looked at him, then nodded once. Kren slammed his clawed hand into the detonation. Trigger. The countdown began. Seconds. The Sentinel was reforming. Faster, angrier, smarter. It had seen what we were, and it hated us for it. As the team sprinted toward the fallback corridor, Cal glanced at Rourke. What the hell did we wake up? He didn't look back, only said one thing. Proof. The blast doors ahead slid open, and standing there, silhouetted by the flickering red glow, was a Trisari. Unarmed, waiting, smiling. He stood tall, clad in ceremonial obsidian armor, hands open. Not a weapon in sight. His eyes, silver and slitted, never left Rourke's. Human, the Trisari said. You don't belong here. Kel raised her weapon. You first. He didn't flinch. I am Virex of the Third Mind, emissary of the Ascendant Coil. I come not to kill, but to warn. Behind him, the corridor pulsed with golden light, shielded, unbreached. Sanctuary or trap? Rourke stepped forward, blood dripping from his temple. You're Trisari. You already tried killing us. Virex inclined his head. I'm not them, Kren snarled. Another defector? We've seen your kind. You all break the same. No. Virex's smile was thin. You're mistaken. I'm not defecting to you. He turned slowly, hands still open. I'm defecting from them. The team hesitated. The countdown behind them kept ticking. 30 seconds, Kel whispered. We blow the core, or we don't. Rourke's mind raced. This Trisari wasn't lying. His aura, his tone, didn't match the ones who burned Earth's colonies. There was something else, something colder. Talk, Rourke said. Virex's voice shifted. Less regal, more raw. You woke something buried, something forbidden. The Sentinel wasn't Trisari. It was older. You were never meant to find it. He looked Rourke in the eye. And now, it remembers you, Rourke frowned. What is it? The one thing the Empire fears, Virex said. History. Behind them, the world ship screamed again. The walls vibrated. The light cracked. The Sentinel's voice echoed like thunder, shattered and multi-layered. I remember the fire that ate the sky. 15 seconds. You've seen what it can do, Virex said. But that's not its purpose. Rourke narrowed his eyes. Then what is? Virex stepped back into the golden light. To choose. Kel pulled at Rourke's shoulder. We have to go. Rourke stared at the light, the core, the scars, the ashes behind him, and made a decision. Hold detonation, he said. Kren growled. You'll doom us, maybe, Rourke said, walking toward Virex. But I don't think we started this war. They stepped through, the golden corridor sealed behind them. On the other side, silence. An ancient chamber, untouched by Trisari tech. Symbols carved into black stone. Human DNA markers etched beside them. Kel blinked. This is pre-Earth tech, Virex nodded. You weren't the first humans to reach the stars. Rourke walked forward. Slow, reverent, then stopped. In the center of the chamber, a pod. Inside, suspended in amber fluid, a human, unaged, eyes closed, wearing armor humanity never made. His heart thundered. Kel's voice cracked. What is that? Virex whispered. Your ancestor. The pod hissed. Thin white steam vented from the seals as the amber fluid began to recede. Lights blinked in sequence, slow at first, then accelerating. A heartbeat made of machines. Rourke didn't move. Neither did Kel. Even Kren held his breath. Inside, the figure remained still. Human. But different, taller, broader. The armor was scorched and pitted, but alien in design. Not Trisari, not coalition. Something lost, something buried. Virex bowed his head. You should not have found him, he whispered. No one was supposed to. The figure's eyes opened, and the air changed. not just in temperature. In weight, a presence pressed into the room like a rising tide. Every instinct in Rourke's body screamed to kneel or run. But he stood. The man in the pod sat up, no breathing apparatus. No disorientation, only clarity. He looked at Rourke and spoke. "How long have we been losing?" Rourke's throat tightened. "Too long," he said. The man swung his legs out of the pod, stood with a fluid grace no human alive possessed. His eyes, gray with gold veins, took in the chamber, the walls, the armor scattered across time. "They found the tomb," he murmured. "Then forgot the fire." Kel stepped forward cautiously. Who are you?" He looked at her. Not unkindly, but like someone looking through centuries. "I was the first to say no." Virex stepped forward. This one was preserved after the first collapse, after the Trisari fled what they could not kill. Your people were scattered, destroyed, but he remained. "Why?" Rourke asked. The ancient's gaze didn't waver. "To wait, until we were angry enough to try again." Far above, alarms continued to howl. The Sentinel, damaged but not destroyed, began to breach the lower containment. It felt the awakening. It remembered the one in the pod, and it feared. Kren's voice came low. "We have to leave." "That thing's coming." "No," the old warrior said. "It's following." He raised a hand. The armor he wore shimmered, responding to the chamber's core. Symbols lit up along the walls. Pathways opened. A map etched in starlight. Dozens of coordinates, dead systems. Abandoned sectors. Black zones erased from navigation, each marked with a single sigil, a flame. Rourke stared. "These are human. Were," the old one said. "Ashes now, like Earth will be." He turned. "But not if you burn first," Kel spoke, voice cracking. "Are you saying we had colonies before Earth?" "Yes," he said. "You lost the first war. Then you forgot." He stepped forward, towering over Rourke. "But you still carry the spark." Rourke stared back. "We're not ready." The old warrior tilted his head. "Then why are they afraid of you?" The walls shook. A deep moan echoed through the chamber, metal tearing. The Sentinel was close. Rourke turned to Virex. "Why help us?" Virex bared his teeth in something not quite a smile. "Because my people forgot what you are." He looked toward the approaching doom. "I want to remember." The old warrior moved to the chamber doors. "Then come," he said as they opened. The light beyond was red, and something vast was waiting. The doors opened. Heat poured in. Not from fire, but from pressure, like the ship itself was holding its breath. They stepped into a vast cylindrical corridor, lined with conduits humming with energy that shouldn't exist. The walls weren't made. They were grown, alive, reacting to the old warrior's presence. He moved like he'd walked these halls before, because he had, thousands of years ago. Behind them, the Sentinel roared, no longer calm, no longer speaking. It wasn't a machine anymore. It was memory on fire, and it was chasing. "Move," Rourke ordered. Kren stayed at the rear, watching the corridor behind them fracture and bleed data light. The Sentinel was reshaping the ship, warping space around itself, learning. "You can't outrun that thing forever," Kel shouted. "We're not," the old warrior said. "We're leading it." They emerged into a chamber so vast it took Rourke's breath. A forge, not of fire, but of thought, suspended in the void above them. A sphere. A weapon, or something older. The old warrior stepped beneath it. "This is where we forged the only thing the Trisari couldn't kill." He looked back. "Us." Kel blinked. "What is that?" "An echo engine," the old one replied. "It doesn't fire. It remembers." "Remembers what?" Kren asked. "Every act of resistance." The forge began to awaken. Lights spiraled in fractal patterns. Dust lifted from the floor. Rourke stepped forward, heart pounding. "And what do you want us to do?" The old warrior turned to him. Finish what we started. He reached toward the sphere. Help it. Remember what you are. The sentinel breached the far wall. It shrieked, a sound like knives tearing through a cathedral. Its body had changed, hardened, its limbs now blades, its voice a chorus of agony. It saw the forge, and it panicked. Target acquired, it said in a dozen overlapping voices. Echo breach imminent. Terminate human catalyst. It surged forward. The forge pulsed. Time twisted. Rourke saw flashes, burning worlds, broken stars, a child screaming in a collapsing hallway. His childhood. His mother's face. And then other lives. On planets he'd never seen. In battles never fought. Human hands. Human fire. Endless resistance. The forge knew him. It chose. Energy erupted. The sentinel hit the blast like a meteor and stopped midair, frozen in place, unraveling. It wasn't dying, it was remembering. Its body spasmed, flashes of every human who had ever said no, every act of defiance encoded in pain. Kel dropped to her knees, screaming. Kren roared, shielding her. Rourke stood, and the old warrior smiled. "You see now," he said. "They never feared your strength." He walked toward the crumbling Sentinel. "They feared your memory." Sentinel's body collapsed into data. Then ash. Gone. Silence. Returned. The forge dimmed. Rourke breathed out. Then the lights flickered again. Not red-blue, a new signal. A location. Kel looked up. "Another one?" Rourke nodded. "No," he said. "Dozens." They emerged from the world ship's lower deck into vacuum, the forge's light still flickering behind them. No alarms. No Trisari fleet. Just silence and wreckage. Kel stared into the void. "Where is everyone?" Kren growled low. "We blew the core. The warship should have collapsed." "It didn't," Rourke said, checking his HUD. The old warrior stood beside him, unmoved. "They didn't want to destroy it," he said. "They wanted to hide it again." A Trisari cruiser drifted nearby, lifeless. No lights, no power. A derelict tomb, but as they neared it, Kel caught movement. Just a flash, like a reflection, but wrong. Too sharp. Contact. 2 o'clock. Rourke raised his rifle. Nothing there. Inside the cruiser, they found it waiting. Not a soldier. Not a drone. A message. Carved into the hull in Trisari script. Burnt into the alloy. They remember. "So we must forget." Kel backed away. "They're erasing everything. The war. The Sentinel. Us." Rourke nodded grimly. "They want to wipe the slate. Pretend they were never afraid." The old warrior placed a hand on the carved words. "They made the same mistake last time." Suddenly, his armor lit. A new signal pulsed in the datanet. Dozens of coordinates, each one flashing blue. Awakened by the forge. Buried outposts. Human colonies long thought destroyed. Some gone for millennia. Some only sleeping. Kel gasped. "We're not just survivors," Rourke whispered. "We're scattered embers." And they were reigniting. Elsewhere, in the shadowed throne chambers of the Trisari core worlds, the High Stratigarch stood before a frozen display, watching the light spread. "They've found them," he muttered. A priest-engineer stepped forward, trembling. "We can strike before they mobilize." "No," the Stratigarch snapped. "That's what they expect." He turned slowly. "We must erase the idea of them." Rourke stood aboard the cruiser's ruined bridge. One of the forge signals blinked rapidly. He pinged it. No response, except a fragmented message. Voice, cracked, old, but human, held the line, still breathing. "They're coming." Then static, Kel whispered. That was a distress call. Kren clenched a fist. "We move now." But the old warrior didn't turn. No, He pointed at the forge map. That one. That's where they'll strike next. Rourke's eyes narrowed. A trap. A purge, the old warrior said. They'll glass the site to make sure nothing remembers. Rourke stepped forward. We're going, anyway. Kel looked at him, uncertain. We barely made it out alive. What if it's worse than last time? He looked her dead in the eyes. Then we show them again. The ship engines powered on. Navigation locked. The path ahead wasn't just war, it was legacy. And someone out there was still alive. Still resisting. But far behind them, in the dark, something stirred, an echo left behind in the forge's databanks. Something. Listening, not Trisari, not human. Watching the sparks spread, and smiling. The planet was called Van Delta on old charts. To the Trisari, it had no name, scrubbed from record like a stain. But the forge knew it. The signals pulsed stronger as they dropped through atmosphere. It had once been green. Now, it was black and broken, glass planes and twisted steel towers reaching toward a sky that forgot them. But something still lived there, and it was calling for help. We've got movement on the surface, Kel said from the cockpit. Multiple power signatures. Kren scanned the readings. Organic, human, but faint. Survivors, Rourke said. They held this place after the fall. The old warrior stood silently behind them, staring out the viewport like he was remembering a grave. This was one of our last bastions, he said. When the First War ended, they stayed behind to guard the vault. What vault? Kel asked. He only said, the one we never opened. They landed in the ruins of what had once been a city. Now it was bones and silence. As they advanced, shapes moved in the fog, half-starved, cloaked in rags, holding ancient rifles built from scrap and memory. Humans, still alive, still watching, still waiting. One stepped forward, her voice cracked but steady. Which flag do you carry? Rourke answered, not with words, but with a name. Elias Rourke. Kaldesh Prime, she froze, then lowered her weapon. Then we're not alone after all. They took the team underground, through the ruins of what had once been a resistance command. Tunnels filled with hand-drawn maps. Weapons. Children. Rourke stared at it all. We left you. Behind, the woman shook her head. No. We chose to be. Forgotten. She brought them to a sealed vault door, covered in human glyphs and something older, something alive. The old warrior stepped forward, placing his hand against the lock. It responded to him instantly. And then, the explosion. The ceiling detonated. Screams. Fire. Dust. Rourke hit the ground hard, ears ringing. Kel dragged him behind cover. Through the smoke, coalition colors, ships, troops, drones, but not Trisari. Volkirian Serev's voice came through the comms. Alive, but changed. I warned them you'd dig too deep, he said. Told them humans weren't just survivors. You're something else. Kel's voice trembled with rage. You betrayed us. No, Serev said. I'm preserving what's left of the galaxy. He stepped into view, gun raised. Some fires shouldn't be relit. Behind them, the vault cracked open. Inside, not weapons, archives, millions of them. Voices, memories, wars, and warnings. The room pulsed with psychic weight. The air shimmered with old rage. The old warrior turned to Rourke. This is the inheritance they feared. Serev shouted, Stand down! This is your last chance. Rourke didn't. He walked into the vault light. Armor scorched, face set. Then, take your shot, Reeve. Fired. The round flew true. Hit center. Mass. Rourke dropped. Kel screamed. The old warrior caught her before she ran, but it was too late. The vault had seen, and it answered. The archives came, alive, and from deep within the data, something woke up. The round had punched through Rourke's chest plate. Clean! He fell hard. Dust rose. Blood followed. Kel crawled to him, hands trembling. "Rourke!" He didn't speak, didn't move, only stared upward, eyes fading. Serev lowered his rifle. His voice shook, not with guilt, but with certainty. "You're too dangerous." "You all are." The Volkyrian soldiers fanned out, weapons drawn. The humans below, starved, barely armed, stood no chance. But no one ran, not even the children. They stood in silence, as if waiting for something. The vault hummed. Low, ancient, rising like a heartbeat. The old warrior stepped into the center of the chamber, blood dripping from a shallow cut across his jaw. His voice was calm. "You forget what they are." Serev raised his rifle again. "I remember enough." "No," the warrior said. "You only remember what they survived." He turned. Not what they became. The air cracked. The archives opened. Not like doors, but like a scream torn into the walls of time itself. Light surged. Not bright. Not blinding. Heavy. Serev fired again. The shot vanished midair. Disintegrated. Kel stood over Rourke's body, shielding him. But the light didn't burn. Read. It scanned them, each of them. The humans, the traitors, even the children, looking not for strength, but pattern, the resonance of memory, the legacy of endurance. The echo of pain transformed into defiance, and it found it in Kel, in the old warrior, in the starving girl clutching a rusted rifle. And then, in the body beneath her, Rourke moved, just a breath, a twitch, but enough. The blood slowed. The wound sealed. Not healed. Not undone, but refused. His body refused to die. Serev stepped back, voice breaking. "No, no, that's not possible." The old warrior turned toward him. "Pain is not the end," he said. "For us, it's ignition." Rourke stood. His armor burned away in places, blackened and cracked. His eyes, not gold like the warrior, but darker, deeper, not glowing, burning. Kel's voice was a whisper. "You died." "No," Rourke said. I remembered. The archives changed in response, flowing like liquid stone, bending toward him. Thousands of voices filled the chamber. The voices of forgotten humans. Not heroic, not divine. Just unwilling to fall. They spoke through him. Not prophecy. Conviction. Outside, the Volkyrian troops fell back. Humans didn't chase, didn't shout. They just stood, and the fear began to spread. Not rage, not vengeance. Certainty. Serev stared at Rourke like he was looking at extinction. "What are you?" Rourke didn't answer. He simply walked past him and said, "We're what comes next." Serev ran. But behind him, something stepped out of the archives. Not Rourke, not human. A shape burned into the stone. Given form, a construct of loss, pain, and fury. It followed him. Slow, silent, and it wouldn't stop. The old warrior looked to the stars beyond the ruins. Kel joined him. "They'll come harder." "Next time," she said. "They should," replied. He looked at Rourke. "He's not the first." Kel frowned. "What do you mean?" The old warrior didn't answer. He only pointed to the stars, where other forges had just awakened. The stars were dying, not from fire, but from fear. Across the Trisari core worlds, a shiver passed through the endless spires and bioengineered palaces. The high stratigarch's cold confidence had shattered like brittle glass. In the shadowed council chamber, voices clashed. You must strike first. A general hissed, veins pulsing beneath translucent skin. These human forges are not just weapons, they're ideologies. Infectious. We lose one, and the whole core will crumble. The Stratigarch's gaze was sharp. Cold, they seek to ignite rebellion, he admitted. But we will not let them. A murmur rippled through the assembled lords. Far from the core, human fleets, scattered, ragged, barely holding together, moved with new purpose. Rourke stood at the helm of the battered flagship Defiance. His wounds were scars now. His eyes burned with a new fire. Beside him, Kell adjusted the tactical map, tracing the glowing blue points, forges alive, colonies waking, embers spreading. "They're watching us," she said quietly. Rourke nodded. "And they fear us." On a distant moon, the old warrior spoke to the coalition. "The Trisari believed us broken." He paced slowly, voice gravelly, soaked in history and pain. But they never understood this. A broken thing is still dangerous, especially when it refuses to break again, Kren frowned, glancing at the uneasy alliance. Not all of them believe it. The old warrior smiled, bitter. Some fear will burn everything to ash. That fear was real. Coalition spies reported unrest, whispers of betrayal. The Volkyrians still seethed, their wounds raw from recent losses, and Serev, silent now, moved like a shadow. Sowing doubt among human ranks, Rourke's voice was low when he gathered his closest. "They think this war is about strength." He looked each one in the eye, "but it's about endurance." Kell's fingers trembled on her. "Consul, how do you fight an enemy who never stops?" He smiled. "You don't." The Defiance slipped through the void, entering the heart of the Trisari blockade. Enemy ships, sleek, lethal, flanked them. Energy beams lanced through space. Explosions blossomed like dark flowers. Rourke stood calm, because they were ready. Suddenly, the flagship shuddered. An alarm blared. Incoming boarding pods. Serev's voice echoed through the comms. "Your Defiance ends here." The airlock blew open. Chaos, metal, clanged, gunfire. Serev was there. But Rourke saw past him. He saw the forges spark, the fires in the hearts of the crew. They fought back, not just with weapons, but with everything they had. Kurku caught a glimpse of Kell firing steady, unflinching. Kren tearing through ranks, relentless. The old warrior stood unmoving, a pillar amid the storm. In that moment, the galaxy shifted. Not in the roar of guns, not in the screams, but in the silence of endurance. Because the Trisari had learned something. Knew humanity wouldn't stop. The bridge of the Defiance was chaos. Fire licking the hull, alarms screaming, and yet no one faltered. Rourke stood tall amidst it all. The wound in his side throbbed, but pain was a language he'd long learned to ignore. Ahead, the Trisari flagship, a colossal black monolith, loomed like a judgment. The Stratigarch's voice crackled through the comms. "Cold and cruel, you are but insects clinging to the edges of a dying galaxy. Surrender, and your suffering will end." Rourke's reply was a whisper that echoed louder than any cannon. "We never stop." Below decks, Kell moved like a ghost, navigating fires and fallen comrades. Her fingers danced across a console, rerouting power to the damaged shields. She caught a glimpse of Kren, bloodied but unbowed, fighting through corridors to clear the way. Their faces were mirrors of the same resolve. Outside, the void trembled with the fury of the final battle. The Trisari unleashed everything. Energy storms that twisted reality, drones that shredded steel, and weapons that screamed through space. But humanity endured. Because they had no choice. Because stopping was death. In the command center, Rourke faced the Stratigarch's avatar on the holoscreen. The alien's eyes burned with arrogance and disdain. "You cannot understand. Your resistance is futile." Rourke leaned forward. "Futility is a human concept. We redefine it every day." Suddenly, the forge's light flared across the ship, a surge of power from the awakened colonies. The Defiance shuddered, systems stabilizing, shields brightening. The scattered human forces beyond the battle joined the fight, sending fleets through warp, igniting hidden weapons, striking from shadows. Stratagarch's face twisted in disbelief. The Empire was fracturing. Alliances crumbling, fear spreading, because the humans did not yield. Rourke turned to his crew. "We fight for every forgotten world, for every soul lost, for the spark that refuses to die." Aboard the flagship's bridge, the old warrior faced down a Trisari warlord. Steel clashed with energy. The warrior's scars were maps of survival, each one a story of refusal. Drove the warlord back, not with strength, with unrelenting will. Kel's voice broke through the comms. "Rourke, incoming!" A missile screamed toward the bridge. He dove. The blast rocked the ship. Darkness edged in. When light returned, the Stratagarch's avatar was gone. Silence. The Empire's grip was broken. Rourke rose, his breath ragged, his body battered. But his spirit was unbroken. He looked out at the stars, at the scattered embers of humanity. A fierce smile cracked his lips. Everyone else saw weakness, whispered, but humanity saw a reason to fight harder.